Dilek Tuna, you're watching AnewZ. Let's take a look at the top stories. US and Iran failed to reach an agreement after historic peace talks in Pakistan. Polls open in Hungary in a key election. And Russia and Ukraine trade blame on violating an Easter truce. High-stakes talks between the United States and Iran in Islamabad have ended without a breakthrough, raising concerns over a fragile ceasefire and the risk of renewed tensions in the region.
The United States and Iran have failed to reach an agreement after about 21 hours of high-level talks in Islamabad. The negotiations, hosted by Pakistan, marked the first direct meeting between the two sides in more than a decade and the highest-level contact since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Talks ran from Saturday into early Sunday, with 3 rounds held back-to-back and both sides exchanging written proposals. Despite what officials described as substantive discussions, major difference remained over 3 core issues: control of the Strait of Hormuz, Iran's nuclear program, and the unfreezing of Iranian assets. US Vice President J.D. Vance said the talks ended without a deal, with Washington demanding Iran commit not to develop nuclear weapons.
I won't go into all the details because I don't want to negotiate in public after we've negotiated for 21 hours in private. But the simple fact is that we need to see an affirmative commitment that they will not seek a nuclear weapon, and they will not seek the tools that would enable them to quickly achieve a nuclear weapon. That is the core goal of the President of the United States, and that's what we've tried to achieve through these negotiations. Again, their nuclear program, such as it is, the enrichment facilities that they had before, they've been destroyed. But the simple question is, do we see a fundamental commitment of will for the Iranians not to develop a nuclear weapon, not just now, not just 2 years from now, but for the long term? We haven't seen that yet. We hope that we will.
On the Iranian side, officials said talks covered a wide range of issues, including sanctions relief, war reparations, and regional security. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Esmail Baghai said some progress was made, but key gaps remain.
Some new topics were added to the negotiation agenda this time, such as the Strait of Hormuz or the Gulf region. These have their own conditions, characteristics, and necessities. But I think that in any case, we must, as diplomats and as the diplomatic apparatus, continue to pursue our national interests under all circumstances, using various tools to safeguard the security, rights, and interests of the Iranian people.
Baghai added that diplomacy would continue despite the lack of a deal. Iranian sources said Tehran rejected a US proposal for joint management, insisting on full control and the right to charge transit fees. Another key dispute centers on frozen assets. Iranian sources say Washington agreed to unfreeze about $6 billion held abroad, but US officials have denied any such agreement. Pakistan, which hosted the negotiations, urged both sides to remain engaged and continue dialogue.
Pakistan has been and will continue to play its role to facilitate engagement and dialogue between the Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States of America in the days to come.
Despite the setback, both sides signaled that negotiations may continue, though the path to any agreement remains deeply uncertain.
Pope Leo on Saturday urged world leaders to end what he called the madness of war in an impassioned appeal as senior US and Iranian officials met in Pakistan to discuss ending the 6-week conflict. At a special prayer vigil in St. Peter's Basilica, the first US Pope made a direct appeal to world leaders saying, quote, "Stop it, it's time for peace. Sit at the table of dialogue and mediation, not at the table where rearmament is planned." Leo, who is known for choosing his words carefully, has emerged as an outspoken critic of the Iran war.
Of course, the leaders of nations have binding responsibilities. To them we cry out, stop. It is time for peace. Sit at the tables of dialogue and mediation, not at the tables where rearmament is planned and deadly actions are decided. I receive many letters from children in areas of conflict. In reading them, one perceives, through the truth of innocence, all the horror and inhumanity of actions that some adults brag about with pride. Let's listen to the voice of children. Enough of the idolatry of self and money, enough of the display of power, enough of war. True strength is shown in serving life.
The Iraqi parliament on Saturday elected Kurdish politician Nizar Ahmedi as the country's new president, a largely ceremonial role following a parliamentary election last November. Ahmedi, 58, is a former environment minister and has headed the political office of the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan in Baghdad since 2024. Iraq is now due to choose a prime minister, a closely watched and sensitive pick. US President Donald Trump threatened in January to withdraw Washington's support for Iraq, a major oil producer, if former Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki was designated to form a cabinet. And staying in the region, Lebanon and Israel have agreed to hold an initial meeting next Tuesday in Washington as both sides move toward potential ceasefire negotiations. According to the Lebanese presidency, the talks will take place at the US State Department and are expected to focus on formalizing a ceasefire and setting a timeline for further negotiations. The development follows direct contact between the Lebanese and Israeli ambassadors to the United States, with US officials facilitating the process. Tensions have escalated sharply in recent days. Israel maintains that the current US-Iran ceasefire doesn't apply to the conflict in Lebanon, leaving the situation highly volatile. Hungarians are voting in a high-stakes parliamentary election, with Prime Minister Viktor Orbán facing his strongest challenge in 16 years from Peter Magyar's Tisza party. Polling stations opened across Hungary on Sunday for the election of a 199-seat parliament, with voting set to run until 7 p.m. local time. Recent independent surveys have shown the centre-right Tisza party ahead of Orbán's ruling Fidesz before the vote. The result is being closely watched across the EU. And as polls open across Hungary, voters head to the ballot boxes in a pivotal election that could reshape the country's political future after a heated campaign marked by starkly different visions from Prime Minister Viktor Orbán and challenger Peter Magyar. The vote is now underway, with the direction of Hungary and its place in Europe hanging in the balance.
Torchlight, flags and final messages, Hungary's election campaign closes with two very different visions of the country's future. In Budapest, Prime Minister Viktor Orbán strikes a confident tone, telling supporters victory is within reach. Framing the vote around security and sovereignty, Orbán positions Hungary as a safe island in an uncertain Europe and warns against outside influence.
We are going to achieve such a victory that will surprise everyone, perhaps even ourselves. We call this a campaign closing, but it's a bit misleading. Don't forget, the campaign actually ends tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock. There's no campaign silence in the Hungarian legal system. I hope you are at least as tired as I am. If you're not tired, that's a problem. You still have the chance to get tired by tomorrow evening. Hungary will remain an island of peace, and after these elections, it will continue to be the safest country in Europe.
But in Debrecen, the message from the opposition is markedly different. Peter Magyar, a former insider turned challenger, is promising a political reset and urging voters to deliver what he calls a historic change. Magyar's campaign centres on restoring democratic institutions and the rule of law, directly challenging Orbán's model of governance.
April 12th is victory. Tomorrow will go down in Hungary's history books as the day of its resurrection, renewal, the renewal of the Hungarian nation, and the real change of regime. From April 13th, there will be democratic rule of law in Hungary. Democracy, but not illiberal, not limited, not hybrid, not popular, but simply democratic rule of law.
His message appears to resonate particularly with younger voters, many of whom see this election as a rare opportunity for change.
Really, I've seen this last 16 years, and basically it is our best chance, the opposition's best chance to take action finally, because the oppression is worse every year, like the oppression of the free press, the civils, I think.
Others point to frustrations with healthcare, governance, and what they describe as a system built from the top down.
This is a party which is unlike former opposition parties, is building itself from the ground up. And this is the essence of democracy, that it should be built from bottom up. And it's not people on the top telling us what to do and who should represent us. This party is totally from the bottom up. And I think that impresses people. And this is why it is popular and so many people support it.
Still, Orbán's base remains firmly behind him. For some voters, the priority is stability.
Viktor Orbán is the smartest and best person in the world, a true Hungarian who fights for his homeland, who fights for his people. We are from Prague in Transylvania. We know what that means.
After 16 years in power, Viktor Orbán now faces his most serious challenge yet. With polls tight and many voters still undecided, the outcome remains uncertain. For many here, this vote is not just about leadership, it's about the direction Hungary takes.
Russia and Ukraine have carried out a new prisoner swap ahead of Orthodox Easter, bringing emotional reunions for families on both sides. But hopes that the holiday might also bring even a brief pause in fighting quickly faded, with each side accusing the other of breaking a short ceasefire within hours.
Russia and Ukraine exchanged 175 prisoners of war each on Saturday in their latest swap, one of the few areas where the two sides have continued to cooperate during more than 4 years of conflict. Russia's defense ministry said the exchange was mediated by the United Arab Emirates and that the released Russian servicemen were transferred to Belarus for medical and psychological treatment. President Volodymyr Zelensky said Ukraine had also brought home 7 civilians and said most of the released servicemen had been held in Russian captivity since 2022. Returning Ukrainians were greeted by cheering relatives, many holding photos of loved ones still in captivity.
Overall, 182 people have been released. That is 175 military personnel and 7 civilians. And 163 of them had been held captive by Russia since 2022. So this is a real success. It is a very significant achievement. It is very hard to imagine what these people have been through during that time, and you can see that the men are returning in varying conditions.
The exchange came just before a 32-hour ceasefire announced by Moscow to mark Orthodox Easter, one of the most important religious holidays observed in both countries. The truce took effect at 1300 Greenwich Mean Time on Saturday, with Zelensky saying Ukraine would abide by it and urging that it continue beyond Easter. But within hours, both sides accused each other of violating the ceasefire. Russian officials said Ukrainian drone attacks in the Kursk and Belgorod border regions injured 5 people, while Ukraine's military said Russian forces had broken the truce 469 times through assaults, shelling and drone strikes. The accusations echoed a similar Easter ceasefire last year, when both sides also blamed each other for violations.
Orthodox Christian worshippers celebrated the Holy Fire ceremony on Saturday, illuminating Jerusalem's Church of the Holy Vault with candles. The Holy Fire is considered a miracle that occurs every year on Holy Saturday, the day preceding Orthodox Easter Sunday. Jerusalem's Greek Orthodox Patriarch entered the tomb where Christians believe Jesus was buried and emerged carrying a lit candle. The flame was then passed around the church and to local Christians and foreign pilgrims waiting in the narrow streets nearby. Costa Rica received 25 migrants deported from the United States on Saturday in the first transfer under a newly agreed bilateral migration deal signed in March between President Rodrigo Chavez and US envoy Kristi Noem. The group arrived on a US flight at Juan Santa Maria International Airport. Authorities said the deportees are from countries including Albania, Morocco, China, India, Cameroon, Kenya, Guatemala and Honduras, and were in the US without legal status. The deal allows Costa Rica to receive up to 25 migrants weekly, with the International Organization for Migration providing food and shelter in their first week. Officials said the comeback program is voluntary and those fearing persecution can apply for refugee protection in Costa Rica. Now let's take a look at the major stories from the region. 9 suspects have been arrested in connection with a terror attack targeting a police post in Istanbul's Beşiktaş district, according to Turkish authorities. A total of 17 people were detained, with 9 formally arrested, 2 placed under judicial control, 1 released after questioning, and 3 still in custody. 2 officers were lightly injured. Authorities say the attack was planned by ISIS and that suspects are believed to have acted within its network and supported the operation. The 2026 Anatolian Phoenix International Search and Rescue exercise is underway in Turkey's Konya, with participation from Azerbaijan. According to the Defence Ministry, teams have been briefed on safety procedures, operational phases and terrain conditions ahead of the drills. As part of the exercise scenario, units carried out a mission to locate and rescue a downed pilot. Airborne teams deployed by helicopter used fast rope techniques to enter the area, neutralise a simulated hostile group and secure the site. Officials say the drills have demonstrated strong coordination and a high level of professionalism among participating forces. The exercise is set to continue until the 17th of April. A round of talks between Azerbaijani and Armenian civil society figures has concluded in Gabala after 3 days of discussions on peace-building efforts. Nigar Shirinova has more from the ground.
The 3-day Peace Bridge Roundtable in Gabala has now concluded, bringing together civil society representatives from Azerbaijan and Armenia in a series of discussions focused on dialogue, trust building and confidence building measures. Across the sessions, participants exchanged views on strengthening direct engagement between the societies and advancing practical steps towards sustaining the peace process. Assistant to the President of Azerbaijan, Hikmet Hacıyev, also took part in discussions and held an open dialogue with participants from the Armenian delegation, responding to the questions and outlining Azerbaijan's approach to confidence building and regional connectivity yesterday. In his recent remarks, he reiterated that track to diplomacy is inherently bilateral, stressing commitments to the peace agenda and highlighting ongoing steps such as trade, transit, shipments and people-to-people contracts as part of the broader efforts to consolidate stability. The discussions also touched on regional economic connectivity, including the potential transit of projects such as the trip, alongside broader reflections on the challenges of the peace process and the importance of sustaining public support for the stability. In parallel, practical cooperation was highlighted, including continued shipments of petroleum products from Azerbaijan to Armenia, reflecting ongoing economic engagement between the two sides. A close closing press conference was also held where media questions were addressed. I also raised the question on the future of the Peace Bridge initiative and the role of journalists and the media in its continued development. With that, the third and final day of the Peace Bridge Roundtable comes to a close here in Gabala. That's all from us on this edition. Stay tuned to AnewZ for more updates. Nigar Shirinova, AnewZ, Gabala, Azerbaijan.
Kazakh President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev has arrived in Uzbekistan for a working visit, where he was welcomed in Bukhara by President Shavkat Mirziyoyev. During the visit, the two presidents are expected to hold an informal meeting and visit a number of historical and industrial sites in the city. Orthodox Christians in Azerbaijan are marking Easter with traditional services and rituals. Believers gathered in churches overnight, with celebrations continuing throughout the day.
Orthodox Christians in Azerbaijan are celebrating Easter, one of the most important and oldest holidays in Christianity. We're here in Baku at the Church of Michael the Archangel, where believers gathered overnight for traditional services marking the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The celebrations began at midnight with special prayers and a procession, symbolizing the start of Easter.
In the days leading up to Easter, believers follow long-standing customs, including preparing traditional foods such as sweetbread and curd desserts. On the eve of the holiday, these are taken to churches for blessing, while nighttime services and processions announce the beginning of Easter. On Easter Sunday, families gather around festive tables, share blessed food, and exchange the traditional greeting, "Christ is risen." Truly, he is risen, reflecting the core message of the celebration. Customs such as decorating and cracking eggs symbolize new life and renewal. Despite regional differences, many of these traditions remain common among Orthodox communities around the world.
Easter is a time of joy and renewal for Orthodox believers, from candlelit midnight services to the sharing of blessed bread and brightly colored eggs. The holiday is marked by traditions that have been passed down for generations. Across Azerbaijan, churches remain open as the celebrations continue. Sabina Bobikirova, AnewZ.
That's the news for this hour. Stay tuned to AnewZ throughout the day and evening for more updates.